Alright, so I'm going to set up backlash in Linuxcnc, and the first thing to do is measure it. So I am going to measure this 1, 2, 3 block in the 1-inch dimension in the Y and 3 in the X, and I hacked a little G-code program that finds the center of an outside square, and I changed it so it'll just spit out the difference between what I tell it that block is and what it actually measures. I know it's pushing 3 thousandths on this thing, so I'm going to measure this and then add it to Linuxcnc and then measure it again and see what the size is, or see what the backlash is. So I am going to run this. It first probes the surface just so it knows where it's at, and then it probes each edge. And then it does the math and tells me what the backlash is. And I'm gonna run it. I've already run it once. I'll run it one more time, and you can see what its calculation is. And so if we look at this, those are the backlash numbers. You see they don't change much from run to run. So it looks like X is about 2.8 and Y is 2.7. So 2.8 and 2.7. I'm actually going to go into the INI and I was playing around with this. So 2.7 and X is 2.8. We're kind of splitting hairs with this machine. I mean, I'm not expecting tenths, so I'm just going to double check this. 2.8 for X and 2.7 for Y. I'm going to save this. So it's always good to get rid of backlash, but you know, sometimes that just isn't economically feasible. So I'm going to get out of Linuxcnc and restart it. Oops. And home it. It needs to be home for backlash to work. And then I've already zeroed it at the top of the part, so I'm just going to run it there. And I'll open my probing program. And run it. And we'll see the backlash should then be close to 0 if I did that right. You see I measured I wrote on top of it what I actually measured the 1, 2, 2, 3 block to be. So that's what Linuxcnc is using to calculate the difference for backlash. And now, if we look at this, backlash is 1/10 in the X and 0 in the Y. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now, if that actually is correct in the real world, let's run this one more time. Let's see if we get the same numbers. I mean, we're talking splitting hairs here as far as tenths. And yeah, so now we're 0 backlash X and Y. So I think that's about as good as you can expect with this machine. Maybe I'll cut a couple quick circles and see if we can see a difference between backlash on and backlash off. Alright. Alright, so here's a kind of a crappy video, or a crappy zoomed in picture of the part that I machined. So this is a 1/2 inch across square aluminum bar that you saw earlier where I machined 2 circles. And this is really to show what it looks like when backlash is turned on and not. So this circle was done with backlash enabled. You can see it's probably not 100% perfect. It's good enough for what I'm using it for, but this right here is where the backlash is removed when the apex of the circle is reached. And this axis this way is changing direction. I don't know which one it is because I've spun this square around about 6 times. So you can kind of see it here. And now if you look at this one where backlash wasn't enabled, you see this flat here. And this is the actual, servo or stepper was changed direction, but the backlash wasn't taken up until about here. You can see this line where now this axis started moving again. So kind of a pretty cool visual. You can see as it comes, this line right here is the peak of the circle where the one axis changes direction. And this, with backlash enabled, it changes direction. With backlash disabled, or zero, this cuts straight for a while until all that lash is taken up, and then it starts going in a circle again. I don't know. I always thought this was a cool visual to show what backlash actually takes care of. Now, like I say, it's always better to remove backlash, but Linuxcnc does a pretty decent job of implementing the backlash compensation. I guess I've never had problems with it, but I think this is the first machine, other than playing with it, that I've actually enabled it. The Kernion Trekker, the ball screws are preloaded. Like, I don't even know. It's like, I'd have to look at the specs, but it's like 1,000 pounds or a ton or something like that. So there is no backlash in those unless you go over the preload on those ball screws. You saw a video. I had posted a video a while back where I was repositioning back and forth the table of the Kernion Trekker to within less than 1/10 of a thousandth, because there is no backlash in that machine. It's amazing. But this machine, with its cheap ball screws, has backlash. And so I'll probably keep backlash enabled on this and see if I run into any trouble, but so far it's working good. But yeah, so this would be the distance it takes for the backlash in the system to be taken out, and then it starts moving again. So I hope this kind of makes sense, and I guess we'll talk to you guys later.